San or E. All right. You're on camera. I'm here with conscious documentary filmmaker, musician, and lifestyle coach, Ben Stewart. Hey, Ben, what's going on?
Just chilling in central Pennsylvania. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm chilling in Austin, Texas. So I wish I was chilling. It's really hot here. I'm not technically chilling, but, I'm just...
humidity levels at like 500 something here. It's ridiculous.
Oh, dude. It makes your hair grow fast, though. If you have curly hair, humidity is great because it makes your hair grow fast. Just so about you. Yeah. You're like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. So yeah, I've been a big fan of your work for a while. I'm glad we got to connect. If you guys don't know who he is, he does a lot of stuff. Like I said, he's a documentary filmmaker. You're a musician. You have a band. You have a band? You still with your band?
Wasn't not with the band anymore. That ended probably 2013. But still making my own music. I do soundtrack work, and I also do my own personal music now. More, I don't know. It's not as heavy as it was before, but it's kind of electronic, very acoustic, bluesy.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd like to check some of that out too. I'm a musician too, so it's hard to have a band. It's hard. It's like having a 4 or 5 week marriage,
Yeah.
You have to be on the same level and want the same thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
We toured a lot, and I'll tell you the truth. When I was in a band, it was some of the best learning experiences of my life. It was incredible. I was with 3-4 other guys for about 10 years. We were touring non-stop. We got on each other's nerves, but it was probably one of the best, chemistries I've ever had with a group of people. Music was great, everything was great, and then just all of a sudden, one year, lifestyles just split apart, and it's been a heck of a journey since then. But it's kind of propelled me deeper onto the film path.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I wasn't really knocking bands, by the way. I just find it, I've just found it hard to collaborate with a lot of people when you all because you all have to coordinate the times you can practice, and coordinate the times you can, and then they have families outside of that, and you have to coordinate everything. So you all kind of have to be on the same level and in sync for it to really happen, So, sorry, go on.
No, it's true. I mean, the bottom line is you're right. Like, everyone's got different lives, and y'all have to hold the same dream for a long period of time. Like, we were together a long, long time, and more than a decade later, we still had the same vision and the same dream, but it had just altered slightly for each of us. Slight musical differences over 10 years. You change, and if you're not 100% willing to just stay on the same track that everybody else is, then you start getting curious about what else there is. And I miss it. I'll tell you the truth. I do miss it. The one thing I don't miss is touring so hard, but I miss going into the studio. I miss creating the music, producing it, laying it down, watching everything come together. Like, making an album, there's nothing like it. You're putting your soul into form of a medium and putting it out there and going out there and expressing it at different clubs every night, festivals. It's great, but it wears on you after a while. And now I have kids. My God, like, sleep is so precious to me. And either, so.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I can imagine the connection you get with people is really great, when you're going out and playing. It's just nothing like that exchange of energy, and especially also when you're playing with a group of people, you're like in sync. It's like a different kind of high that you can't explain unless you do it. Whether maybe dancers get that too when they're dancing in sync. And the military uses it as a form of manipulation to manipulate people by cadences and stuff when they march and everything. I did when I was younger. I was in a junior military program in junior high, and that was the best thing I loved. I loved the marching and the chanting. But other than that, I wasn't into anything else other than that. But it hooked me. That hooked me. I like the best.
I was in the military actually for 6 years, and that was right when I turned. Man, I enlisted right when I was 17, so I got out right when I was 23.
Ooh, wow.
And it's very funny that you mention that with the cadences, because so I'm writing a book as we speak, and one whole section of it is about vocalization. So me being a singer, I find several different things about being a singer and vocalizing and the importance of it. I could go nerdy with it and talk about vagal tone, but like low, deep operatic singing, it increases vagal tone.
Get nerdy. I'm a nerd.
Okay.
My subscribers are nerds too. They'll love it.
Yeah, well, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of vagal tone a little later. The vagus nerve is the one cranial nerve that wanders outside of the spinal column, and they call it the vagal nerve, as in vagrant or wandering nerve. Okay. So anyway, like it passes through the gut and everything. It's a big part of the gut-brain axis, and so vagal tone, if you're doing cold showers like Wim Hof, that's really good for vagal tone. Low, deep operatic singing is really good for vagal tone.
Like basses, but not tenors, right? For opera?
Honestly, I'm not so convinced that it's just low, deep singing. I think that it's just whatever opens up your throat more and you sing longer tones. Because like the science, whenever you see something on like vagal tone, it's new science. So in 10, 15, 20 years, the more they look at that, the science is going to broaden and then fine tune itself in.
Yeah. So
what I think it's more about is the fact that you are consciously not interrupting your breathing, but you are consciously steering your breathing by singing. And so we know that like when you when you like breath retention actually causes for peptides to go from the lungs into your cerebrospinal fluid, and it actually alters your state of mind. And so this is why you have holotropic breath, Wim Hof breathing. Medicinal mindfulness does breath workshops, and what this does is it creates an altered state of consciousness. They're even finding people like John Chavez, who wrote Questions for the Lion Tamer. He's launching a whole thing. I was just talking with him yesterday about exogenous DMT and how breath, things like vocalization, actually causes for DMT to release in the brain.
Oh, wow.
So without too far on a tangent, where I'm going with this is when you're mentioning the military and vocalizing and the cadence, there's two things that I'm putting in this book, and one is, the whole book is really all about the song of the universe, and we're always following this song, but there's hypnosis and there's psychosis. Hypnosis is the same thing over and over and over again, which makes a part of your attention fall asleep and just go. It just goes with it.
And then wait, can I just ask you a question about that? Jump on that. Like, so in that, when you're in that state of mind, you're easily like controlled by an outside force, right? That knows once you're kind of in that. Is that right?
Yes, I mean that's if I had to say it that way, yes. Like when you're being hypnotized, a good hypnotherapist, you're not outside of your own judgment. So you can be hypnotized within your own judgment. And my mother-in-law, Marion Bone, she's in Psychedelia, and we'll talk about that later. She does this where she does past life regression and just regression therapy. And when you are hypnotized with her, there is nothing outside of your conscious realm. You're completely with it. But then when you're out of it, you realize like how much more relaxed and like focused your attention can go. So hypnosis does not have to mean that an external force is taking over, but it can mean that. So we have hypnosis on the one side, which is like when it comes to music, it's just think of dance music, and this is what's good about it and also what can be very hypnotizing about it. It's the same repetitive beat over and over again. They call it 4 on the floor. It's just boom, 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 boom. This is why shamanic tribes, they have the drumming and you're dancing around the fire and you're getting into this trance, this shamanic trance. So that's what hypnosis is it's too much consistency, or it's just the one extreme of consistency. And the other one is too much novelty, and that's psychosis, where there's no anchor to home. So where consistency or hypnosis is nothing but home, it's just the same thing over and over again, and it makes you kind of fall asleep into it. Psychosis, or the over novelty, is kind of like, think of a story where it's just instead of Jack runs, Jack sits, Jack sleeps, Jack wakes, Jack runs, Jack sits, Jack sleeps, Jack wakes, or wakes. That's hypnosis, that's consistency. Psychosis would be Jack wakes, jumps, falls, laughs, cries, runs, flat, hard, little, fast, cheap, narcotic. It makes no sense, and it keeps wandering and meandering into nothing. And so that's psychosis, where there's no anchor to home. It's just like a firecracker going on endlessly into space with no meaning, no sense to it.
Okay.
So in music, it's the perfect balance between those two. Now, where this long tangent, where I'm going with that is the cadences. When I was in the military, you would have your flight. I was in the Air Force, so it was called a flight. And we would all march to the cadence, which is the rhythm and the order of the drill instructor. The drill instructor was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. And then basically, just 1, 2, 3, 4. Over and over and over again, and left, turn right, stop, go, at ease. And they're very simple commands, but how do you program a robot? It's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Go, left, right. It's an algorithm. So that's the interesting thing about the military, and it's a vocalization. It's the drill instructor who has been conditioned by the whole system, the military-industrial complex, to then go on and replicate itself. So it's like a self-replicating thing. You get the drill instructor to go replicate these little lieutenant or like cadets to come up and do the same thing, and some of them will become drill instructors, and they will self-replicate more up into the system. And that doesn't have to be negative or bad, but if you look at the military-industrial complex, they're not going out and building schools and sharing
planting flowers.
No, they're not feeding people, and in some cases, the National Guard, yes, Operation Vittles, where they go out and they would feed starving countries and stuff like that. But to me, that's more for show than anything. So
it's not really, yeah.
That's my long tangent based on the military and the cadences and vocalizing.
But now that you bring that up, I always asked my guest, or when I had this podcast with my friend, we always asked our guest, what was your, I'm guessing maybe your awakening experience was being in the military. What was the thing that made you awake? Because most people, except I think for Max Egan, we know him, right? It's like, or not born woke. I think he's the only person I could say was kind of like born woke. But anybody else, they've had some kind of experience that like opened their eyes. So what was it for you?
Well, let me just say a quick thing about Max Egan. Is he's one of the most interesting cats to talk to hang out with. He's sick on guitar.
Yes.
And guy's a machine when it comes to doing what he believes is best to wake people up. And so I got to give up so much love for that guy.
Yeah, me too.
And so, yeah, you're right. With not many people do. Basically, they're born. I think Max was just born calling bullshit on everything.
Yeah, like he just was popped out the mama hole and was like woke. Yeah, totally.
And so for me, I think it was before the military. I have this mentality that I was destined to run into this course or to have a collision course with my path at some point. I traveled a lot when I was younger. I was an Army brat. So I lived in 10, 15 different places before high school. Several of them were with indigenous tribes. Like one was Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands, where the Marshallese, they were the ones that were taken from the Bikini Atoll onto the Kwajalein Atoll. And you see this old Admiral black and white footage of an admiral staring in binoculars over the ocean, and you see this big atomic bomb going off. That was the Kwajalein Atoll. So I lived right there for several years, and I got to see.
Wait. So they put the atomic bomb on that island where you were. So by that time you were there, did it just?
So an atoll is basically like a lifting or a bar with speckled islands. Like that's an atoll of islands. And so there was the Kwajalein Atoll and the Bikini Atoll, and it's like 3 degrees above the equator, farther than Hawaii, out towards Micronesia and all that. No, not up there.
I'm looking at the map. I have a world map right here.
Oh,
It's like,
thought you were following a bug or something.
No. I'm trying to get put a picture to where you're talking about, but I'll look it up later.
Yeah.
I'll look it up later.
So if you look at Kwajalein, Kwajalien, I think is Kwajalein. It's in the Marshall Islands. There's the Bikini Atoll, and that's where the Marshallese originally were. And what happened was when the military came out, World War II, came out and displaced them from that atoll onto the Kwajalein Atoll in order to bomb the Bikini Atoll, where they used to live. It was their old home. And then the military set them up with banana plantations and stuff, and then they were all like, we're not going to grow bananas for you. So the banana plantations, all that money that they put into it, it just went to waste. And the Marshallese went about their own ways. And they were refugees, like I would say 2,000 years ago, from China, from a patriarchal system, and they went into Kwajalein, or to that atoll, founded themselves there, and came up with a matriarchal system. Quite an interesting story, but where I was going with that was, from an early age, I was able to see what we would call a third world kind of civilization. And they were basically, by the point I saw them, I was like, oh wow, it was more like a zoo. There were spectacles from my Western point of view. But I got tuberculosis when I was there, and it was such a small island. It was literally 2 football fields wide and 2.8 miles long, shaped like a boomerang. Oh. There was not enough medical care there. So with tuberculosis, I had to go to Hawaii. So we lived in Hawaii for a while I got radiated. They put me on basically radiation pills for a while. Real young, underdeveloped liver and kidneys. The islanders in Hawaii hated us. They called us haoles. They hated white people for very good reason, I have to say that. And we eventually moved because they beat the living piss out of my brother really bad.
Well, I mean, it's not your fault, you know what I mean?
No, and I'm not sticking up for their behavior.
Yeah.
Never pay that stuff forward, but I can sympathize. I can understand in a way. But beyond that, I kept traveling. By that time, I had a taste for what was the shamanic world, and understanding, being more in touch with nature. Got into Native American lore and blue whales, and I started nerding out on all that stuff.
Oh shit, yeah.
And then eventually I got into a band. I broke my ankle real bad. I was into football and soccer and baseball. I broke my ankle real bad, and I was at that point where I was, no, I'm going to be in a band now. So I decided to go into a band. That started waking me up. Then I got into the military, and I couldn't speak my mind. I couldn't really be a spokesman for what I believe.
You do what you're told.
Yeah. Even when you're not in uniform, you're not allowed to make political statements and world statements. So by the time I got out, I was so sick of that, and I had seen enough in the military that I started really speaking through the band. And then eventually people started asking me through emails. They were like, what are your lyrics about? What caused you to write such lyrics? And as an artist, I just decided, okay, I'm not going to just tell them and blah, blah, blah. I was going to make a piece of art. So I started working on Esoteric Agenda, which was supposed to be a 15-minute film about the band.
Yeah.
Turned into a 2-hour film having nothing to do with the band, and that was the rest is history. People were like, I want to buy this film. And I was like, okay, it's not really a film. It's kind of a stream of consciousness, but go ahead. I started burning discs. And
that was the first thing of yours I saw. Sorry, didn't cut you off, but I'll put a link to it in the links. I'm just making notes as you're talking.
Yeah, beautiful. It's all up on Gaia as well. They should still all be on YouTube, even though I was kind of silly back then. I was just making stuff and putting it out online, saying it's yours, it's the world's. And then I started noticing people were selling my DVDs, taking my name off of it, my brother's name off of it.
That's awful.
Putting theirs on it and selling it. You know what it was? It was a wake-up call to the way the world really is. If you take a snapshot of the population, you're going to get people that they don't create on their own. They just find other people's stuff
and steal it, and manipulate it.
And so, you know what it was? It was a wake-up call for me. And it took me years to really understand the financial game and how to do it.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to start. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Go ahead. I love being cut off.
I know. I love. I'm learning that too. I'm trying to figure out a way to make money off of my art, off of truthin', as my friend called it too, because you get to the point too where you want to be independent and create, but also if you have financial backing, you're still controlled, right? Whether the person has good intentions or not, because you can come to a point in your creative work where you disagree, and then you have to be like, okay, am I going to appease this person that's giving me all this money, or am I going to do my own thing? So that's kind of like the journey I'm on too, and it's just like, but we started this channel in 2011. And we've done all this work. We've interviewed all these people, have done all this work for free. We've written articles. I've written some informational zines. Like, because you just have that passion, and you want to, you just see that we're lied to about so much, and you want to give, and you want to wake people up, because like if people were awake, if they understood why certain things happen the way they did, it'd be just, as cheesy as it sounds, we'd have a better world.
For sure.
So much suffering.
About financial backing, no matter what, you're going to have financial backing. What you want is such dispersed and diverse financial backing.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's what
it's not just somebody or some company that has a ton of money and it's up to one person, a CEO, to say yes or no to you or not. No matter what, it's you plugging into the economic system. What I would say, because you're already on this path, you're woke, you're beautiful, you're young, what you could do is take a look at KPI. I forget the guy who wrote it, Key Person of Influence. Okay. And when you really start looking into how to monetize what you do, it doesn't have to mean that you're selling out to the economic game. The thing is the economic game is what's in power. And so everyone who's doing anything online, if they're not selling out to that economic game with what they're doing something else to stay at least somewhat relevant in the game. Yeah. So what I'm working on is Key Person of Influence, and what that basically is you are like a Joe Rogan or an Aubrey Marcus, or let's say a Kim Kardashian or something like that, where people they want to know what you think about this subject. Like, oh, there's just this, there's these mass shootings that just happened. I want to know, is it Verstein? Is that how you pronounce it? Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to know what Verstein has to say about that. Okay, I heard Alex Jones, and I heard Rush Limbaugh, and I heard this guy, and I heard this dude, and this girl. I want to know what Verstein says about that, and that's being a key person of influence. And when you really just kind of diversify like that, you're still plugged in to that game. You're still dependent to some extent. You're not dependent. I take that back. You are intra-dependent. You're interdependent, which means you are not independent, removed from a system. Yeah. But you're still in the system, but you're more independent within that system, because you have so much of a network within it. And really, the reason why I wanted to mention that is not to go into here's how you become an entrepreneur.
No, but this is good, because some of my subscribers too, like, they want to start their own channels too, so this is good information.
Yeah, well, check out the book Key Person of Influence. Okay. That guy, I think it's Daniel something. I'm forgetting the guy's name, but he's really intelligent. So I'm working with a guy now, Pete Evans. He's a chef. Very famous chef in Australia. We're working on a film right now, and then a follow-up film after that. But if you guys follow him, he's Chef Pete Evans on Instagram. And he is the one who introduced me to this book and this lifestyle, in a sense, and is basically just getting to the point where you say exactly what you feel, but you are becoming, in a sense, a news outlet and an art outlet of your truth, of your soul. And so you are that key person of influence, but you have, like, he's a chef that got into, okay, I'm keto and I'm paleo and I'm trying to show ancestral ways of eating, but now I'm trying to take a look at some other things like cannabis, psychedelics, shamanic ways of living. And he's open-minded, and he tries not to step on the toes of like other fields. Like, he's really good friends with David Avocado Wolf, who is
raw. Well, he's not raw anymore, but he used to be a raw food, right? Raw food
right,
is
right.
Yeah.
And he got me into that field, and I think that's what this is there's a bubble of influence. And like, let's say, oh, are you keto, or are you vegan, or are you a truther, or are you a left, or are you right? The thing is all of them are tools and categories. If you can be the removed witness and, in a sense, the wielder of all those tools, then you're playing chess with them, as in, like, okay, you know what, this lifestyle, or like keto was working for a little bit, but it's not anymore, I need to go raw. If you're not attached, like, oh shit, but I have that tattoo on my arm, I'm keto, I can't do it.
Totally.
If you're not like that, then you are the chess player of all these tools, and you really are nobody. You're nothing. And that's a good thing in that way, because you can become anything when you actually identify with nothing. So in my way, the woke entrepreneur truly is that. It's understanding the game. It's understanding the fact that for the majority of people, and I include myself in this, the majority of people, they really want some kind of social validation before we step into something brand new. I want to know that there's been a book written about it. I want to know that there's people raving about it. I want to see what other people's trials and tribulations are with it. And if there is that one thing that nobody's talking about, absolutely nobody, then make that your brand. Yeah. And that's the main thing about being a key person of influence, is you're finding your brand and you're pitching it. You're actually putting your brand out to the world. Joe Rogan experience, okay, kind of like Jimi Hendrix experience. He leans right a little bit. He'll have conspiracy theorists. He'll have MMA fighters. He's cool. He's a bro. He'll smoke. He'll get you on muscle. Smoke. So that's a brand. But the thing is a brand, like Tool, Maynard, Tool, that's a brand. But that is a part of Maynard's soul. You know that they came up with that because they're like, I want to be dark, but I kind of want to be conscious. I want to be math rock, but I want to be able to do shamanic shit. Like, that's what a brand is it's the best way of putting forth to the social world, online and through what you're wearing, what's on your skin, all that stuff. You're putting your soul out in a way that is translatable to the outside world. That's the key person of influence. And I think that is the best way to move forward, because you're not dependent upon any one source of income.
That's phenomenal. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Speaking of which, were you just the host for Limitless, or did you also write the dialogue as well for that?
Yes.
So both.
I did all.
Because I noticed it was.
I did have a producer. I'm not taking that away. She's amazing. She works at Gaia. Her name's Valerie. She was amazing. She helped me. A lot of it was like, I had so much information I wanted to put in there, and she was like, Ben, you're losing me. Talk to me like I don't know any of this. And she helped me pare it down. But it was pretty much all of it was what I wrote.
So Limitless, one of the you wrote and hosted a documentary about what would you say it was about, like how human the limitless, how human beings are limitless, basically the potential of human beings, which is great. I'm all about that. And I got this quote from the film I thought was really very true. There are people who live their whole lives on the default settings, never realizing you can customize.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really deep, and I love it. I wrote it down. So
yes,
explain about Limitless a little bit forth?
Well, it's a 13-part series, and really it's the basis of the book that I'm writing right now. And when I got to Gaia, the first thing I started working on was a show called Psychedelica, Psychedelics and Shamanism. And what I was leading that towards was what I knew was going to be the next thing I pitched to them. And that's what became Limitless. And basically, as I started off on my path, more with music, then conspiracy, and then the way that kind of just started like breaking off from just conspiracy and just exposing what's going on in the external realm and talking about esoteric stuff and what's been hidden from us is really just diving into the specific field of what can we do about it. Because when it comes to conspiracy and exposing what's actually going on in the world, the more you research, the more you realize that what you used to believe is maybe it's still on the same track and you're still kind of right, but it's dialing in and you're getting more fidelity and you're understanding it more. But the only thing that will never, facts will come and go, and some things may be not relevant in 10 years from now that we're trying to expose. But one thing that will always be relevant right now all the way into 1,000,000 years in the future is maximizing our potential and what we have the capacity to do about our circumstances. So that's what the whole show is about, is limitless potential. What is our human potential? Not just as one individual, but when we get rid of that boundary of the flesh, me, Ben Stewart, if I identify with none of that, then I'm allowed to be all of it. Then I'm allowed to see that I am also that 4-year-old boy with, a distended stomach, malnourished in another country because he's not getting enough food. I can sympathize, but I can also put myself in that situation and be like, okay, how much power do I have over this whole situation? How can I tune in and tap in and bring the most force and effect for what my soul would like to do in this journey here and now? And so that's what the whole thing is about. And it starts with, what are you capable of? So, what are we capable of as individuals? And it ends with the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture? Well, we can talk about how offended we are by, right now there seems to be this big whole thing online or in the news about people being offended by word choices and segregation and separation of classes and identity. And as much as I understand that, we're talking about things on an individual, personal level when there's so much deforestation happening, not just in the Amazon, but around the world of old-growth forests. That offends me, And,
yeah, we're not going to have anything to eat or place to live or air to breathe.
Right. So I don't mind people's choices of what kind of, if you want to be this gender or that gender, but you were born in this body or whatever it is, if you want to wear the hat that says Make America Great or Feel the Burn or whatever it is, let's talk about what's actually going to affect all of us in the very near future. Yeah. And, if we're looking at the Titanic, it's like rearranging the seats on the Titanic, changing the decor on the Titanic as it's barreling towards that iceberg. What's going to have the most efficiency very, very shortly? So to me, that's the whole point of the show, is to really bring ourselves into this. No, we really are all on a ship. Doesn't matter what shape it is, if it's flat, if it's round, if it's a hologram, it does not matter. There's very real, verifiable things that are happening that we're never going to get around to if we're talking about the little picture. So to me, that's the whole thing about Limitless, is breaking out of our individual, even like pet peeves and stuff like that. Like, let's put things into perspective. Do your pet peeves really matter if you're racing towards an iceberg and you're about to be swimming around in ice cold water? That's the biggest point of the show, and really that's where all my work has been heading towards to begin with.
You're right. I mean, I definitely have gotten caught up in the left-right paradigm this last year or so, just because I don't know, I think to me it's a bigger symbol of, like, what's going on with this country and everything. But You're very correct about that. You know, a lot of it's just getting to the point. It's just getting so petty that I'm just like, I'm like, you know, there's so many things going on. You know, you want to say something?
Can I back that? Yeah, I want to back that up with something, because like the one thing I try to never do with any of my work is point fingers and say that certain types of people with certain belief systems are not doing it the right way. Because that's making things exclusive. Some people are excluded, and some people will feel like, well, this guy doesn't understand where I'm actually coming from. So I want to back that up and say, nothing is invalid. None of our beliefs are truly invalid. Even if I disagree with somebody who has, like, let's say, a polar opposite belief, every situation can have more love brought into it. And I think, you know, as tried and true and worn out as that, you know, love is the answer, love is all you need, as worn out as that really is, every situation has the possibility of bringing more love, compassion, and understanding towards the collective. And so, to me, being caught up in the left-right paradigm is not really the problem. I'm not going to say that's the problem. The problem is not bringing the right key to the door that needs unlocked. You know, and that's the whole point of Limitless. If you notice, there's this symbol in the background that has this keyhole in the back. It's all about the right tumblers and unlocking it, because the real solution, the whole solution to all of it, is love. But it's not just saying that. It's really understanding what is it like to bring love into a situation filled with so much destitution, corruption, and misunderstanding.
And the perpetual cycle of hate. And then, I mean, it's like, but how do you do that too when you have the media that's constantly driving wedges between people in this country, and just like, you know, I think that's my main deal. It's just that, you know, I've lost my brother, and we're not communicating. We're like, I have friends that I've lost, you know, just because of my political beliefs. And I know that there are people that are watching this, they have the same thing. There's a lot of pain and hurt. Honestly, we talk about how angry we get and how frustrating it is, but you know, there is, I mean, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of pain, and it's just like, I don't know, I rack my brain sometimes figuring out, or trying to figuring out, I mean, I have taken a stance on a side, but I also am just like, I see like what's going on, and I'm just like, how do I fix this, you know? And going back to art, I went to it was a show of an artist that I really liked. And they were talking, you know, and I forgot exactly what they said, but they made some kind of comment basically demeaning people that didn't agree with them politically. And I ended up leaving, and I was just like, you know, if I ever have a chance to play to that many people, I do think that my art is a place, music would be a place to be like, bring people together, right? Music, art, sports, because you can, you know, there were people there that had different political opinions there that night. They just wanted to hear music, you know? Yeah. And it was just kind of heartbreaking, because I really respected this person, this band. And I was just like, you know, I know they think that they're using their music to fight, right? Their art to fight. But I think, honestly, in art is the one thing, you know, that can bring people together, because maybe you're having fun with somebody at a concert that has a different political opinion than you, and yet, you know, if you find out their political opinion is different than yours, you might be more willing to listen to them because you had a good time at the concert together, you know?
Yeah. Let me respond to two things that you mentioned in there. One is with the media and how divisive and dividing the media can be. I'm gonna revert to something that Paul Chek, he's a personal trainer, a good friend of mine.
I've heard of Paul Chek.
He has the Chek Institute, and that's CHEK. He has a really good podcast called Living in 4D with Paul Chek. And he was doing an interview with a guy about EMFs and everything, and the guy was basically saying, like, anything you want to research, you will have not just both sides of every argument, but you'll have all different, you can debunk anything or prove anything online. And what Paul said was like, well, what that really means, and what he tells all of his clients is, that is you being called to be an adult. So there is this thing that gives you anything you want. If you want to be left, if you want to be right, if you want to be right in the middle, if you want to be extreme, if you want to be whatever, there's something that will be sold to you as a lifestyle and a way of living, because it's all about attention, where your attention goes. And the media is, and billboards are, and all TV is, and all advertising is vying for your attention. It's begging for your attention. So here's a thought experiment on that. You know, if Paul is right and is saying that is calling you to be an adult, then you have to break down the words. What does an adult really mean? Well, he's not just talking about any old adult, because there are many adults that are caught up in the mystification, if you will, of all of it. And really, all you need to do is wake up from it to see it for what it is. But the thing is when you're surrounded in a context of people who are swimming in that, and you want to have a conversation with them, there's only one thing I would say personally is, and this, I'm not even going to give you the answer yet. I want to do a little thought experiment. Let's say you are at that same concert, that art show, and that person is using their art, and imagine in that moment there's many people that are offended, and then there's some people that believe the same exact thing that person was saying, and then there's other people that are like, I don't care, give me the music. Yeah. Kinds of people, right? So what would be a situation, what is the one thing that would allow for everybody to transcend the idea that I have to identify with what he's saying in some way? Like I either have to oppose it, resist it, or I have to accept it, or I have to step outside of the flow of it and not care until something else happens that I do align with. The one thing that would allow you to transcend it, and this is what I believe, but before I give my answer, just a little thought experiment is, imagine that something horrendous happens. It doesn't have to be like a mass shooting at that concert, but imagine a big fire happened and 50% of the people were horribly massacred there. How much of what that person said would matter 5 minutes later as you're trying to help your friends or your just fellow whoever's out of the building, and people are coughing and they're coughing up blood, and you're trying to stop bleeding and hemorrhaging, or God forbid, a foreign invasion, whether alien or whether another country comes in. How much of that matters when there's a situation that calls you to transcend it? And what matters in that moment? In that moment where, okay, we're just a bunch of humans fighting for our lives right now, and here's the person who is annoying me standing right next to me because they were all about what that person was saying. Now they have 2 limbs missing and they're bleeding out, and I need to help them. Do I help them? Do I love this person? So in a sense, like that's very, very extreme, but sometimes we need to push our minds to an extreme scenario to acknowledge what is the transcendent factor that is not identified with any of that stuff that does become divisive of us.
Wow. So the answer is set a fire? I'm just kidding.
This is a thought experiment. But to me,
yeah,
it's the one thing is, and it sounds so silly, and so it sounds too simple to some people, because they're like, okay, well, just loving everybody doesn't actually help get this person out of office, or stop all the bills that are being passed, or stop the deforestation and stop the coal seam drilling and all the fracking. So believe me, I understand that. I do understand that, but I think that therein lies the actual path of life. Is it's not as simple as a single word like love, because our understanding cannot, we need to explode our understanding of love to be able to even grasp what that full force and effect is. But there is identity. It's not like this, I'm one with the universe, I'm on 5-MeO-DMT, and I am God, I am everything. There is still identity. There is still Verstine, there is still Ben, and we are still different in many ways, but there is still one part of us that will never be apart, that will never be separate, never be anything other than that one thing, that love, So I can't really say the answer because the answer doesn't exist in words. Like the whole book of the Tao Te Ching was to basically say, I can't tell you what the Tao is. I can't put it into words. You need to discover it. So, I mean, I'm sorry to give you such a flowery philosophical what you're saying, but I think that's the core of it, is you going on with your life and living your life and following your path and asking the right questions, questions, set you off on a course. It sets you off on a quest to find the answer, to find the soul, your purpose. And all it is ever seeking, in my personal humble opinion, is that one uniting factor, love. But it's not the word love, and it's not the thing that you'll find in the songs. It's hinted at. You know, John Lennon was correct because he sung it so well. And I'll say it in this way, and it might sound completely off, but there's this book called Story. And I forget the guy's name, but it's all about screenwriting. And if you want to know...
I know that book. I know that book.
Robert McKee, I think, maybe, but I could be completely wrong. But anyway...
Robert McKee, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. He says this one line. He says it's not good enough to have a good story. You're never going to succeed with a good story. Everyone has a good story in their head. Everyone has the most amazing ideas in their head, but they don't know how to translate it to the world. So it's a good story well told. That, to me, therein lies the key. Our entire existence is refining this instrument, this body, to be able to have the capacity to, in everything that we do, exude and express that love. Because you can't I can't explain love to you. I can't explain God to you. No one can really do that. But if you look at a guru or a sage that's actually living the path, and you watch them long enough, everything they do together is the story of love. And it's still not exactly it, but it is the closest thing to an emanation of what real love and real God might actually be. So if that gets anywhere close to an answer.
I don't know. I just get so frustrated. So one of my awakening, the two things that awakened me was corruption from the pharmaceutical industry, and then being a teacher, and especially when I wanted to learn languages, I speak Mandarin and Spanish, and I start getting into things like, do you know Tim Ferriss?
Yep.
You guys, Tim Ferriss is like a life hacker, and he speaks a lot of languages. He does all these amazing things. Jim Quick.
4-hour work week.
Yeah, it's a 4-hour work week, 4-hour chef. He's given some TED Talks, and he has a podcast, I think, now. And so him and Jim Quick, and, and there's some other people. Those are just the two that I can name off the top of my head. But then you see them hanging out with people like Bill Gates and stuff like that. And I understand Bill Gates, he's pushing things like open court that is dumbing people down. But he knows that there are technology, there are ways to expand the human mind and make learning easier, like mnemonics, and I was learning about stuff like this to help me retain more information and stuff like that. But yet he's pushing the opposite. So it's just kind of frustrating. When you know that, and this knowledge, by the way, it's very, it doesn't cost anything, to teach people this. It's very, just very, just teaching people how to use their imagination and to gain memory skills, right? Mm-hmm. And he's also pushing technology that makes human beings dependent, right? It seems like to me there's a spiritual war going on, there's side that knows about this stuff, yet is pushing technology and saying things, yes, you can enhance your brains, but they're pushing stuff like, microchip your brain, or use these lights, or use this just fake or not fake, but this technology to enhance your brain, and putting the focus on that instead of putting the focus on human beings and our potential, and us having the ability to do that ourselves without the help of this. Because when you're relying on the help of the technology, you basically become a slave. Whereas you taking this road where your potential and you can be you can be limitless. You're free. I noticed that you. Let me see. I wrote down, I was like, yes, I'm so glad. Talking about the placebo effect, right?
Yeah.
And you said, I'm trying to, I'm glad, I've always wondered why the placebo effect is not harnessed, right? I'm so glad you brought that up in Limitless. You were talking about, like, you know, people are like, oh, well, that's just placebo. Okay, so it worked, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Why do you need a pill or a vaccine to make you, if you understand how the human mind works? So there's just, so I guess I'm going in tangent, but my thing is there's just so much attention putting on enslaving us through technology and like, you know, crushing our self-esteem and our belief in ourselves that we can only achieve a certain amount without help. Is there a spiritual work going on? What is your opinion on that? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, believe me, I really appreciate that you're cutting straight through to exactly, like, I'm catching a glimpse of what it is that seems to be, let's say, the word I would put on it is a frustration point.
Yeah.
And so in that, there's always truth that lies behind that friction, always. And there's truth that lies behind everything, but especially in the friction. And so the way that I would say that is like the Tim Ferriss being seen with a Bill Gates. Now, here's where I diverge from a lot of people that were in the field of conspiracy, because conspiracy is so huge. Like, you have the people that are very new age, you have the people that are completely mechanists, and you have the people that are all about aliens, and all the people that are all about the shape of the earth. And it's huge thing, but it's held together by this we're being lied to thing. So I agree with the we're being lied to, but I also agree that movies aren't giving you facts. Movies are telling, this was in V for Vendetta, to give the truth. It's telling you the truth by spinning lies. So here's where I'm going with this. Bill Gates, if we want to take a look at that one human being, that one individual, and say, like, how can somebody who's on this path be seen with a representative of things like this? And that's the association factor. Like, this person is associated with, you know, expanding the mind and using the mind more to a limitless degree, but then seen with this person who is, in a sense, hijacking that. In a way, we are all Bill Gates to some varying degree or not, if we're not 100% woke. And some people would feel truly highly offended by that because they're working on the path away from that. But to me, we are all Bill Gates to some degree. We are all Tim Ferriss to some degree. We are all Max Egans. We are all Mark Passios. We are all Ben Stewarts. We are all Versteens. And we have tendencies, and those tendencies, when put in the right formulation and ratio, becomes a Ben, becomes an identity like a Versteen, like a Max Egan, like a Bill Gates, like a Tim Ferriss. So here's the one thing that I would have to say about that is, when you're looking at it in that configuration, this person, that person, I think that's not the correct categories to put it in. It's the tendencies that are feeding into the Bill Gates, because there's a lot that Bill Gates stands for that I do not agree with. You know, so the idea of the mandatory vaccinations, and like, I would have to actually go and research this again, but does he not? He doesn't vaccinate his own children, but he's very into the vaccines being pushed for other people.
Oh, he knows what he's doing. Don't get me started.
Right. So
he knows.
Right. I won't go into that because I think that's too specific. And the reason why my films used to name names and point fingers at specific names, specific families, and I think there's a place for that. And that's also calling people to, like, this is not going to go unnoticed. And if you're carrying out an agenda, you will be called into the light. If you're operating in the dark, you will. And so I absolutely agree with that. But where I've come in my journey, my specific journey, is I can't fill the shoes of all those hats. Mine is taking a look at the configuration of reality slightly different. What is feeding into? Like, okay, here's a little useful toy. Here's a torus, right? And so this toroidal field, you have its energy coming out from the top and then spiraling down into the middle. And, you know, like, if I were to collapse it back in on itself, it's got this kind of like this function where it can, you know, so it's going in that pattern where here's the middle of it, and in that middle, here's the contraction point in the middle, and it's popping up and it's reinventing itself. Every time it comes out of that nexus point, it reinvents itself. So you'll have some people that are focusing on the in a sense the outer expression of it out here, and then you have some people that are totally focused on, let's say you have people that are more visual, and then you have people that are more somatic, that are in the middle, that are more sensing, they're sensing things. So how do you get away from being limited by only the one or the other, by the it's Bill Gates and it's the vaccines and it's the left, right, it's this person, it's this family, or no, it's just the ever living essence to it. I guess the point that I'm getting at with this little toy is to be able to broaden our perspective and to take a look at it. Tim Ferriss is bringing a lot of beauty into the world, and he may be seen with somebody and it may not make enough sense. To the people that are focusing on this, it may not make sense how it connects in here. And to those who are focusing in here, it may not make enough sense to those who are focusing out there. But to understand that everybody has that beauty in them, and everybody has a hint of darkness in them. Everybody has that rough kind of rock and roll edge, and everybody has that poppy, shiny edge to them as well, in different ratios. Even the people who want to completely remove themselves from one or the other category, we all, at the deepest part of our essence, are connected in with all of that. So here would be my advice, and I'm trying not to make it long-winded when I'm putting these things into categories of thought, because it's just my way of explaining this whole thing. You can take the good and leave the bad. Like, how would a guru or a sage who sees no difference between a lily and an atomic bomb, between a Bill Gates and a Tim Ferriss, because they see the ever-living essence and the drama, the story, the grand narrative that many are being hypnotized by and many are resisting. How do we take the good with the bad? And am I actually answering your question, or were you taking it in a different direction? Do you see where I'm going with that?
I do. I just think that
their solution.
No. I think he's the solution. I was just saying that, Bill Gates is using these techniques, yet he knows he could take those techniques that he's learning from Tim Ferriss and this knowledge that he's learning from Tim Ferriss and use it to empower people. Instead, he's doing the opposite. He's saying, we need people to think all alike. And he, saying stuff, he didn't finish college. He's pushing, this education. Yeah. But my thing is, like, also, too, I want just people... I'm thinking about, calling these people out so people can be aware who they're giving their energy to. Why are they, so many people, especially, when I lived in Asian business and then in finance, they look up to Bill Gates. They look up to Warren Buffett. Yeah. They look up to all these people who are basically, don't have their interest in mind, who want to enslave them, who want to, see them dead, who don't care about them. How do you, I think there's a place for letting people know this information so they know who they're giving their energy to. But I think I see what you're saying too, in the sense that, if we have all of these bits in us too, that, after these people were arrested and taken out of existence, more people are going to pop up like that until we get to the core of, like, right? Is that basically what you're saying?
Agreed. Well, I guess what I'm saying is, there is no solid answer. There really is no solid answer, because I absolutely agree. Like, my path is only for me, and I am only one part of the equation. I'm not trying to cover 100% of the bases. There needs to be a Verstein. There needs to be the Max Egans. There needs to be those who are more straight to the point. And though that is not my style, I do not blame Justin Bieber for making the music that I don't really listen to. And I was actually kind of upset when I heard that. I think Maynard called him out and said, Justin Bieber said he grew up listening to Tool, and I think Maynard said something along the lines of, that's too bad, or something like that. Like, Justin Bieber's a fan just like anybody else. Take it. Say thank you, and I think that's more on the side of all this. You know how you could say there's a left and right of this, right? By your perspective, there's a left and right of this thing. But as you turn it, it's all a part of the same energy field. And so the reason why I believe I exist is to show that, yes, you're right, and there is a part of you that's of what you're saying here that could also be spun in a way that makes it seem like I could make the argument that would make it seem like you might be wrong. But the thing is I'm not right in what I'm saying. So in the Bill Gates perspective, does Ben Stewart agree with what Bill Gates is doing in the world? Not at all. I would say I would have to really, really scrounge to find that 0.0001% that might agree with it. And that 0.001% has more to do with you learn no matter whether you are put through heaven or hell. You learn. And these are all opportunities for life lessons. So do I think we need Bill Gates to wake up? Do I think we need that extreme pole of darkness to express ourselves in the light? Maybe. And I think that's why I take something like this as an example, is because I don't think if it was as simple as specific families need to go, specific people need to go, specific mentalities need to go, if it was as simple as that, I really think that there would be possibly a bit more traction, and I could be wrong about this, but I think there would be a bit more traction in the way of a solution there. But I think what it is when we're focusing on Bill Gates is the reflection or the representation of the thing that I disagree with in this world. But is Bill Gates 100% incapable of changing his mind and doing what Kevin Spacey did in American Beauty and just all of a sudden snapping out of it, or Tyler Durden in Fight Club, where he's just all of a sudden you realize that why am I living my life like this?
Yeah.
Damn. Could he not at the end of his life be like, whoa, wait a minute, I don't agree with any of this, and I'm going to give my fortunes away to do the exact opposite of what I was doing? Maybe that's the 0.0001%. Is it going to happen? Highly, highly, highly unlikely that Bill Gates will ever change his mind about these things. But therein, to me, lies the key. Is it Bill Gates? Is it Tim Ferriss showing his face with Bill Gates because Bill Gates is the problem? Or is the essence of it, the true essence of it, is the people who are supporting Bill Gates to be Bill Gates, the people who are buying the products to be Bill Gates, the ones who are
people
buying
that are,
the lies?
I think it's people that are buying the products.
Bill Gates for selling people lies, or do you blame the people who are buying the lies, or is it something held between those two polarities that allows for that charge, that motion, that action in this plane of existence? So again, this is where you could go into the rabbit hole into infinity, and your mind would just go into oblivion, because what I'm talking, I guess I'm expressing is, I don't think it's as simple as saying that there's one or several family lines or one agenda. I think the agenda is real. That's why I made the film Esoteric Agenda. But we are not removed from that agenda. We are not removed from what is moving Bill Gates to be a Bill Gates, Warren Buffett to be a Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, and those are just the public faces of it. Think about the people who are behind the people, and they are definitely there. They're absolutely there. Are we disconnected from them? Are we disconnected from anything in this universe? Is the question that this is the point of Limitless, is to really accept that. Is the solution pointing directly at the issue out there, or directly back into the key? And this is where I think alchemy is. When you put yourself into that loving space where you can look directly into the face and the eyes of the devil and feel love, regardless of what you're looking at. You can be in hell, burning alive, and still be in that bodhisattva place of equanimity and love, and bring love into that moment. What does that look like? How does that look? And I don't mean just look, but what does it feel like to align every cell of your body chemically, in a quantum sense, in a chemical sense, in a molecular sense, in an atomic sense, in a mental sense, in an energetic sense, to feel love in the face of the worst possible pedophilia, disgusting,
satanic,
everything that absolutely does exist? What does it look like to hold love in the face of that and not feed back to it filth? Not feed back
because
to
if you feed back to it, you become it, right?
You are feeding it. You are literally like
feeding it.
A charge needs you. Like, what is a Bill Gates if nobody gives him money? You know, what is a Jeff Bezos if nobody goes on Amazon? It needs us.
Oh my
and
God,
the thing is we are hypnotized by it.
Yeah.
You know, we are hypnotized by it, but we are holding the other end of that electrical charge to make it alive. We made it alive. And all the gods that you hear about in mythology, everything that we talk about is like the gods and the Nephilim and the Anunnaki. Perhaps they did exist back then, but I believe that the real gods, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not talking about way back then, because time is, again, it's a cycle. It cycles back in on itself. Who are the gods nowadays?
That's celebrities and politicians and
corporations. Amazon, Alibaba.
Well, celebrities could be corporations too. They're incorporated. They're an entity.
You're definitely right. But they are the public face for a movement of energy. The economic system is a movement of energy. It's a configuration, like a switchboard, like the old operators used to work on. They're configuring energy to work in a switchboard way, in such a way, configured so well, that it causes people to believe that there's nothing else other than the economic system. Like, what would we do? Just go back into the jungle and spear fish and, you know, like live in loincloths? Like, no, that's not the only other solution. You know, that's the left-right mentality from me. Is like, if you're on the right and you have somebody arguing you, you're like, well, then it must be this, right? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so this is the difficulty of trying to put these things into words, is by understanding that it would make you mad if I were to say everything is everything. Everything is everything, because then, you know, nothing is everything. Nothing makes any sense, and everything makes all the sense.
Oh, no. No.
Right?
Yeah.
So your mind is going to oblivion. This is the reason for identity. This is the reason why I am not some amorphic, no form, just entity of intelligence that I have access to that part of me, but I also am me, and I have my musical tendencies, I have my political tendencies, I have all these tendencies that give me this form. So what is the answer? How do we approach the Bill Gates? How do we approach the agenda that is in motion, sending the Titanic for that iceberg? Unfortunately, the answer is good question. That's a good question.
Wait, I want to have you on for like 10 more hours, but I'm technically in my work break and I have to go to work soon. I just want to ask you one question and we'll wrap it up, and then I'll let you promote anything you want to promote, and then you'll send me links too so I can put them in the description. So what made you change your mind from naming names and then just being kind of having a more expanded or different, you know what I mean? You were saying the first, when you did Esoteric Agenda, which is when my first introduction to you, I was like, yeah, this guy's calling him out. He's naming names. He's not playing, you know, like what made you change your approach, so to speak?
Thank you for that. Two things. One of them is I already did it, and I don't take back anything I said. I did name the names. I pointed strong fingers. I already did it, and in a way, I could keep going on and making 100, programs, 100 films, 100 books, naming the same names. But the thing is I still believe exactly what I said in Esoteric Agenda, in Kymatica, in Ungrip. It has not changed. It's only enhanced and become more real for me. So beating a dead horse is one reason. Second reason is ayahuasca. And when I did ayahuasca, I found a part of me that was not being served by naming the names, because beyond all the little names, in magic, there's this thing where it's like if somebody knows your real magical name, they have control over you. There's a bunch of little names, little gods, little demons, little things that you could call upon to get little things done. And then there's the one real name. And that was where Hebrew came in and was like coming up with a mathematical real name, Yod He Vav He. And, so to me, I don't even name it that thing. But the reason why I stopped naming little names is because there's one larger name. And that name is very difficult to actually pinpoint. Kymatica is one of the closest things I've come to. Hierosonic is the next thing that I've come to. That was the name of my band.
How do you spell that? How do you spell Hierosonic?
Hierosonic. Okay. And Hiero means sacred, like sacred hieroglyphics, sacred glyphs, sacred symbols. sacred sonic, sacred vibration. Kymatica is the dance and the interplay between vibration and matter. And really, Limitless is one of the other names I can put towards it, because the thing is I'm done pointing fingers outside of ourselves, because it's all right here.
Yeah.
There's a million, infinite manifestations of the thing I'm trying to say out here. There's only one in here, so I have to live that message. So I'm going to try and keep it concise. That's why I stopped naming names, because I already did it, and I realized that here's the answer.
I'm talking about the man in the mirror. That's it, yeah. Right? All right, so where could they find you? Tell them, and then I will also drop in the link. I'm going to have you back. Whenever you're writing a book, when you have your book coming out, you want to promote your book, you can come back, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the website is going to be benjosephstewart.com. It's not up yet. But benjosephstewart, my name.com. That's going to be up here very soon. I'll send you another link. It's a bit.ly link. It's shortened. It's a landing page on Gaia that has Limitless. And I would say if anyone wants to find me and reach out to me, my direct email is talismanicIdols@gmail.com. And that's just TALISMANICIDOLS@gmail.com. Reach out to me directly. I'm doing personal training, which is more vision quest through the technological means that we have, the vision quest of finding our soul purpose, Skype consults, things along those lines, help with psychedelic journeying, integration work, and finding what it is that we're actually doing on this thing. And so I would say reach out to me by my personal email, go to that landing page on Gaia that I'll send you the link for, and soon it'll be benjosephstewart.com.
Okay, are you comfortable with like 25,000 people emailing you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Ben. Don't hang up. I'm just going to stop and I'm going to sign off. This is Versine Henry for Truth or Talk. Peace, truth, and love you guys. Bye-bye. Mwah.